Hi, my love. Welcome to the Gemma Hanley podcast. My name is Gemma. I'm your host. This is the space where I have honest conversations about overcoming anxiety and overwhelm so that you can calm your nervous system and feel really confident and happy and calm from within yourself. Along the way, I share my own stories of holistically healing 23 years of anxiety and depression myself. And so if you're a woman seeking answers to perfectionism, people-pleasing, burnout, resistance, you may love, you're in the right place. Let's do it. Let's begin. And before we begin, I want to pay my respects and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land upon which I am recording from, which is the Gubbi Gubbi tribe. And I want to extend that acknowledgement to their elders, past, present, and emerging, as well as anybody of Indigenous or Torres Strait Islander heritage watching this replay. Hello, beautiful woman. Welcome back to the Gemma Hanley podcast. Awesome to have you here. Perfect timing for me to hit record. The postie just knocked on my door. He cracks me up because he always calls me by name. Gemma, are you home? But I actually love that. One of my favorite parts of a service experience, or one of the ways I feel most seen and valued, is when people actually fucking bother to use my name. And it's just an interesting thing that just happened because that's going to form part of the conversation that we have here today. Names are something that it's some names, pronouncing them are not my strength. And believe it or not, in the last round of Reveal and Rise, I had two clients with the same first name, the same middle name, and then separate surnames, but difficult pronunciations of both. And one of the women said that she's never had anyone bother to take the time to pronounce her surname correct. And I just basked in the enjoyment of doing that. One, because I believe it's important, but for her to be able to receive that as well. So it is, whilst it's not a strength of mine and it can take me a few goes, I do my best to get there. Okay, let's dive in. I actually just put a poll up on my Instagram about what we should call this podcast episode. The options were, option one was why 80% of my clients choose to rejoin Reveal and Rise instead of leaving. And option two was why the mindset work you've been doing hasn't actually worked. Something along those lines. I probably should have written them down. Stumbling over my words. But they were the two thoughts that I had when I came to titling this episode, which I normally do before I record because everything sort of comes down out of there. It's the first thought. But it was an interesting one because they seem like such different names for a podcast episode, and yet the conversation that I'm going to bring for you today is exactly the same regardless, because the reason why 80% of women choose again and again to rejoin me in my coaching spaces is because the way I coach is different. And they've had experiences of doing the mindset work, investing in themselves, showing up vulnerably, taking that leap of faith and feeling let down often in the past. And so when they join my world and they see how I do things differently and they start getting those results that they've always wanted, and have absolutely been committed to achieving, but just haven't had what they've quite needed to get there, they see the benefit, they see the rewards rippling out in their life, and they want more of that. And, I am just in awe of these women that do choose to really embody like healing and nervous system care and creating calm confidence and peacefulness from within themselves as a lifestyle choice. Yeah, they don't see it as this box that's ticked once, an award is or a certificate is put up on the wall and then it's done. Because what actually happens when a woman takes that approach is far more healing happens than just within herself. Of course, that just deepens and deepens and deepens, and then her potential to rise into endless experiences that her heart desires into life just continue to compound and doors continue to open for her. But the ripple effect outwards to her family, to her loved ones, to her friends, to her community, to how the world experiences her and what that prompts within them in terms of, oh, there's a different way of doing things. Life doesn't have to be frantic. I don't have to feel like I'm always getting things wrong, or I have to do more before I'm worthy, or before I can be celebrated, or before I'll be successful. I don't have to rush around. I don't have to race around. Oh, there's an existence where I actually don't stay stuck up in my head, overthinking things, worrying about what other people think, if I've upset them, if I'm going to be rejected, which pieces of me I have to keep hidden and I'm not allowed to show, which pieces of me I need to put at the forefront because they're celebrated and other people think they're valuable. When this woman walks out into the world and she is just, someone who has fully chosen herself and decided that this life is for her to live as the real her, it has an impact way bigger than herself. Although, of course, it's felt mostly and most significantly within herself first. So let's dive in. There's lots of wisdom that I want to bring. This conversation is going to center a lot around my healing, what I required to go from 23 years of anxiety, blacking out from panic attacks, suicidal depression, the longest list of physical symptoms and chronic physical symptoms where my body for years over and over and over and over again was trying to speak to me about the truth of who I am and asking me to express authentically and honestly. These symptoms had to keep showing up, even though I tried a million different things, felt like everything under the sun. And a lot of the time it just felt like they couldn't be explained. Until I understood emotional intelligence and subconscious programming and looking at the nervous system for answers and how the mind and body are actually very, very, very much linked. So that's part of what this conversation is going to hold. That's the foundation of where my beliefs, my unwavering beliefs, come from, that I'm going to share with you in this episode, as well as what I believe a woman needs to be able to heal her nervous system, to let go of that existence that is everyday anxiousness, worrying, fear, overthinking, walking on eggshells, trying to please other people, overachieving, exhausting herself, burning herself out from always go, 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 do, because she doesn't have this solid relationship with herself to return to, where she knows that she is fucking brilliant and capable and intelligent and wildly worthy. So beautiful and stunning. In fact, she is freaking amazing. She doesn't know that unless her external world is reflecting that to her, either through confirmation and approval from other people or external results, and I'll just to simplify that as much as possible, whether that is money, the amount of money in the bank, a trophy that she's winning, the title that is on the bottom of her email signature, whether she is a wife, whether she is a mother, all of these pieces, right? She doesn't know who she is internally without that externally. So what I'm going to walk you through today is a conversation around what I believe must be present, in the process and in the plan or the strategy of changing that, for it to actually change, so that you no longer have to feel like, fuck, like I'm showing up, I'm doing the mindset work, I'm investing in it, emotionally, physically, energetically, financially, in all the different ways. I'm pouring my heart and soul into it, but it's actually I still don't feel like I'm there. I still actually don't feel really confident speaking up about whatever I think. I don't feel like I access states of calm and inner peacefulness for exactly who I am, exactly where my life is on a daily basis. Yeah, that's what we're jumping into. So what I wanted to share with you firstly is that, yeah, from the intake of Reveal and Rise that just closed, we finished up at the start of February, end of Jan, start of Feb, maybe the first week of Feb. 80% of the women that joined that last 4-month intake have already re-enrolled and rejoined for the intake that is starting next week, actually. Yeah, at the time this podcast goes live, next week, in the last week of February 29th. The intake before that, which would have sat around the middle of last year, 2023, 60% of women rejoin that one. And the reason for that is as the reason why it's gone from 60 to 80% is as new women join the existing women, there's more members, more women in the space to be able to rejoin that pushes that statistic up, right? And so eventually there will come a time, because if you know about Reveal and Rise, it's capped at 30 women. There's 2 separate call groups so that the call groups are kept really small and intimate. And then there's also shared spaces with our private community and our weekly accountability chat and check-in as well. But it's capped, and I'm going to go through why it's capped. But what that means is eventually, spaces will be full because these women see so much value in it that they keep showing up, which I fucking love. I'm going to explain that as well, why that is, because I actually get to deepen into a relationship with them, and I get to take all of the coaching wisdom I've gained by listening to them and being present with them intimately, one-on-one, and apply that to the questions they ask me, in the next intake. And so it's a relationship that is growing, and I'm intimately versed in this woman's life, in her history, in how she's responded to different coaching conversations, pieces of feedback, how she's built upon that. And so all of this intelligence I'm gathering, I get to pick up and take into the next round or intake with this woman, and we just build on that as well. But before I go there, because I'm already going there, what I want to share with you is, this client retention rate that I have, the fact that these women say yes to me over and over again, in trusting me in such a vulnerable space, which I absolutely never take for granted. It is such a privilege, is that this isn't happening by mistake. Yeah, it's not a fluke. I'm not lucky. I have very, 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 very fucking intentionally, over and over again, made choices to create a coaching environment and a coaching experience that is not just convenient for me. Yeah. It is exactly what these women need to be able to thrive. Yeah. And the reason I know that is because I've lived it. Yeah. And the role as coach is something that comes very, very naturally to me. And so it's actually one of the most common things I hear if I'm just meeting someone new, and not because they're inquiring to work together. So if I'm, like, I don't know, I was at a dinner the other week with some of my dad's friends that were up here. They all play tennis together. And of course you get asked, what do you do for work, or what do you do up here? And so inevitably, when I'm asked that question and I share, I work in the mental and emotional health space. I help women with anxiety, healing their nervous system to feel more calm, confident, peaceful with who they are. Often the response I get to that is, that must be hard work. Yeah. And that must be heavy work. Right. And it's funny because I'm like bursting to share how much energy it gives me, how alive it brings me, how much it doesn't even feel like a job for me. It's actually so much fun. And I believe that's because I'm so deeply rooted in my values, in the way that I offer coaching experiences and the way that I coach. Yeah. And so an example of that is honesty and depth. So in my coaching spaces, we don't sugarcoat things and we don't sweep things under the rug, right? We have the conversations that need to be had to get to the result that you're telling me that you want. And of course, we do that in a really loving, compassionate way, but we're not leaving out any of the information that you need, right? And because I've lived this myself, I've become very, very fucking good. And this is reflected back to me, not just by my clients, by in my personal relationships, that one of my qualities is being able to read people. So like reading their body language, listening to what they're saying. Yeah. Being a really good listener. And in listening to what they're saying, I'm also hearing what they're not saying. Right. And so it's very fucking natural and easy for me. Like all of that just appears and I hear it very easily. And so having honest conversations absolutely lights me up inside, and having conversations of depth and meaning that are really stimulating, that allow us to expand and evolve and actually change as a person. Yeah. So having conversations that these women haven't had before, asking them questions that they haven't thought about before. And growth is another one of my values that comes through in this, right? Like problem solving is very fucking easy to me. Like it's just so natural. Before, some of my past careers were, I studied law, I sold residential property, and then I worked as an EA, an executive assistant to CEOs in construction firms. And at that point in time, I would say like an alternative title for executive assistant would be professional problem solver. Like you're just putting out fires everywhere, looking how to systemize things, streamline things, make them really simple, put them into a plan so they just roll out. And so I guess I take like a lot of my background in some of those roles has come through in guiding women to grow and to be able to change and find new ways forward that feel like flow. And it excites me. Yeah, it just like every fucking cell in my body is energized by having these conversations. And of course, there's also the component of my personal life experience as well. So yes, I'm extensively qualified in this space, but beyond that, I have fucking done my time in what some of us will call, that are honest, funnily enough, honest about what it's like to look at what's triggering anxiety or what is causing our thoughts to be spiraling or our brain to just be busy all the time. It can feel like we're in the trenches. And I did my time in the trenches. For 23 years, I was so anxious. I was blacking out from panic attacks at times. There were stages where I couldn't leave the house for anything other than work because I was just so fucking self-conscious. Like I couldn't even decide what to put on that felt good enough for me to walk out into the world other than this really clear defined role of work. Yeah, like suicidal depression, the longest list. And I think I've already talked about this. Yeah, like the longest list of physical health symptoms as well. And so, there's nothing that builds trust more for me personally when I'm engaging a coach or I'm bringing on an expert in any area of my life, whether it's in money, whether it's in nutrition, whether it's in fitness and training, or whether it's in my business, or whether it is in nervous system care, than the fact that they have actually lived and created the results for themselves. Yeah. So when a woman is struggling with overthinking, I can tell her about when I was blacking out from panic attacks while driving to work. I can tell her how I felt like I just wanted to like bang my head against the wall to just get a moment of silence. Yeah. Or when she is feeling terrified or like her world is going to fall apart because she's considering setting some new boundaries and uh, setting a new path forward. Yeah. So how things have been done in the past in her relationships, she's complete with that and she's ready for a new way forward, more respect, um, more connection, more receiving, not just giving, but also receiving as well. More love, more honesty, more physical intimacy is a big one that comes up in our conversations. Um, and so she's terrified. She's feeling like her world could be about to fall apart. She doesn't know if this person is going to snap and get angry at her if she speaks about something that she wants to do differently, whether they're going to say, well, I'm out then. This is not I don't want this. Whether they're going to laugh at her, maybe ridicule her or minimize her and suggest that what she's saying is all in her head and that she's too much and she's too sensitive and she's too dramatic and she's too high maintenance. I can talk to her about how I have literally lived through all of these instances. And I remember when I was still completely housebound with chronic illness, chronic fatigue, huge gut issues, extreme anxiety, depression, so in it still. Yeah. And I remember um, really starting to see, though, the light at the end of the tunnel. And I knew there was a lot of work ahead of me, but I also was looking at a plan and like in starting to engage with a plan and a coach where it just like it felt right and it felt really believable and it felt really trustworthy. And it's so interesting as I'm reflecting this because my last coach that I engaged, my current business coach, a couple of months ago, that's exactly the same feeling I had when I brought her on for 12 months in my business. And so I remember at that moment having this feeling of like, I want everybody, and particularly women who are feeling this level of suffering, this level of hopelessness and despair, feeling this trapped and this stuck, and like no matter what they try and which way they turn, nothing is really coming together and nothing is really changing it. And maybe they've been efforting towards that for years. I don't want them to feel alone. I want them to have the exact support that they need and like the tools and the resources that they can just sink their teeth into immediately and where they feel supported and where they're getting the feedback that is confirming that they're on the right path and highlighting which pieces are maybe not on the right path and need to be looked at. Like, where are the gaps? And I remember thinking this even before I'd achieved it for myself, but there was just this instinct and this knowing within me that I was going to do it and it was going to happen for me. And I think that's a huge part too, when I talk about how, my coaching programs, they're not just convenient for me. They're not just designed for me. I've literally sat down and crafted them to look at every single need, every single request. And I've interviewed a lot of women and asked them, like, what do you need in a program? What do you want in a coach? What have you tried that has not worked? And some of you listening to this episode may have been on the receiving end of those questions that I've asked. And so, whether you're maybe on the fence or curious about whether I'm the right fit for you to help you in your healing journey, or whether you've just landed on this podcast and you already have a coach and you're already, seeing incredible results and it feels really trustworthy, or you're just curious and you're looking at what's the help I need, regardless of whether it's with me or not, this is what I believe for every woman, what they need to be able to move forwards. So the first, I'm going to highlight a few pieces here because like I said, it's very obvious, very clear to me why women keep returning to my coaching spaces. It is not a fluke. It is not luck. And one of the reasons for that is I offer a high level of individualized, personalized coaching support. Yes, Reveal and Rise is a intimately sized group coaching program, like I said, capped at 30, and then you've got your intimate group, even more intimate groups off that for your coaching calls weekly. But the coaching you're receiving is specific to you. You have access to me 3 times a week to ask your questions, right? And so, what is not happening inside my coaching spaces is you're not a woman that's being lost in a sea of other women. Yeah, you're not just a number. You're not joining a call with like 50, 100, 200, however many other women. That's not going down in my coaching spaces, right? You're not left to figure it out on your own, right? Oh, which part of the course should I be working on? Have I completed that correctly? Have I done enough here? Is it time to move on? Am I being a bit of a perfectionist here and like holding myself back? Or do I need to be investing more time and energy into this piece? You're also not joining a coaching call and only hearing other women being coached and not receiving any coaching for yourself, right? You're not showing up to coaching calls to listen to other women be coached and then make notes and then go off into your world alone again. Yeah. And there's a big reason for that, right? Your neurology and your nervous system has its own imprints. Yeah. From your childhood, from your life experiences. And it is the activation of your neurology and your nervous system that one rewires and reprograms the brain and the body, but also teaches you the skills to become a curious thinker, to learn what compassion feels like in your body. And I don't believe that on a deep core root level that can be achieved by observing other people doing the work and not being invited into it yourself. And, maybe some of you have even had that feeling where either you've shown up to a coaching call and you've been too scared, or you felt too nervous or too afraid to put your hand up and be the one asking the question. Or maybe you've even had one-to-one coaching. Yeah. Because women can hide in one-to-one coaching. Yeah. And maybe you haven't brought forth all of the information, and perhaps you haven't been on the receiving end of a coach that has really been able to hear what you're not saying. Right. And so that experience of having direct individualized coaching that is specific to what's happening in your neurology, specific to what's happening in your nervous system, that is unpicking and finding the precise subconscious programming that is running in your life. Yeah. And perfectly achieving all the results that you currently have, even though you might not want them, is not, being zoomed in on enough. Right. So that's what's not happening in my coaching space. You're not in a sea of women. You're not being missed. You're not being left on your own. What is happening? And this speaks to where my clients receive their results from. Yeah. In terms of how my coaching spaces are structured. There is so much individualized support, right? Like you as an individual are very interesting to me. And I want to know, as your coach, I want to know as much about you as possible, right? And so I'm seeing you on coaching calls every single week. Yeah. And they're not, even the coaching calls, like they're 90 minutes in length. Yeah. Everyone's questions are getting answered. They're weekly, they're not monthly. And they're intimate, like I said. Yeah. There's nowhere for you to hide. If you join my space, I'm assuming that you want results. And so I'm going to 100% show up to that. And if I feel like, I'm not hearing about you or I'm not learning about you, I'm going to invite you by asking you questions and by getting curious. You're supported because in between the coaching sessions, you're also not just sent off on this high of a of an aha moment, right? To then only have that peter off and to drop back into feeling like you've lost motivation, you've forgotten, like, oh, what was that thing? And I felt so clear and I felt so certain and I felt so excited, but now I can't really remember that piece. And like, or maybe you can remember it, but taking that and putting that into an action step so you can implement it feels like too much of a stretch for you. And so this is another, space that I needed help when I was healing. I needed to be, I had these questions that would come up. I needed to feel like someone was on my team. I needed to feel supported. Yeah. I needed to feel like I didn't have to have all the answers myself, because if I did, I wouldn't have needed to join some coaching program. Right. And so daily, you have access to me in our private community and you get to ask me whatever questions come up. And they don't have to be questions we've covered on the coaching call. They can be brand new questions. If you can't join a call that week, if you've got a clash, or if you're focusing on implementing something, or if you're out living your life because really new, exciting, fun things are happening, you can still be supported. You have my eyes on you outside of the coaching calls. And I just want to explain to you, I do at times spend 15 minutes writing like really lengthy responses to the women that ask a question, because the responses will include, curious questions for them to go and journal on, but that also might include a link to like a guided practice. Maybe I'm linking them to the inner child guided practice, or maybe I'm linking them to the anger release practice, or maybe I'm linking them to the grief playlist. Yeah. That I want them to go away and work on. And then I'm also educating them in the answer of like, this is what this looks like. Yeah. For you to be the woman that's following through on this answer. Like, if once you're living it, this is how it feels like in your body. This is what's going to be happening in your world. And this is what's not that. Right. So they're getting reflections to work with in real time. They don't have to wait for the call. And then the other thing that we do that is really important as well in terms of individualized support is that every single Monday, I have a specific space for accountability. And this space is only open on Mondays. So we don't spend any other part of our week in this space as well, which means it feels really like clean. It feels really organized. It feels really straightforward. The women know how it works. They get the opportunity to use it as an accountability space. I get the opportunity to learn even more about what's going on in their life, even more about what's going on in their world, so that I'm seeing things that they might not even yet be thinking are part of the problem that they're working on, or that they need support on, or that they need to ask a question on. And so there's 4 or 5 really short, sharp questions I ask them that they report in on just in bullet point form every Monday, helps them set up their focus for the week as well. I'm going to go off on a tangent here. It's important. This is something that is so important if you're really serious about sustainably healing your nervous system. Yeah. Sustainably feeling calm, confident, and peaceful in your life as the real you. We definitely need to know where you're heading, what the future goalposts are. Yeah. If there's like a 6-month, a 12-month, a 3-year vision, absolutely. Yeah. We want to get you to a place where you're really clear on that and it feels exciting. It feels aligned and authentic for you. And what can often really let women down and have them feeling like they're not moving forwards and get caught in overthinking and feeling like they're doing things wrong and that they're the problem and that they're not good enough is that they then in the day to day, yeah, so like each day goes past, each week goes past, they're like, oh, they keep referencing where they want to be and they're like, oh, I'm still not there yet. Oh, it's actually today that is feeling so far away. Do I really want that? How important is that to me really? Because it's really testing me right now. And actually, I actually feel like giving up, and I don't feel that clear on what my next step is. And a lot of things are happening that feel like it's evidence that maybe it's not for me, or that I'm not doing it right, but I'm doing everything I know. And so that feels really hard. And I feel really confused. And now my nervous system's feeling really stimulated. And there's this like survival reaction in my nervous system that's playing out because I'm feeling stressed and I'm feeling worried and I'm feeling afraid and I'm feeling lost. And so I really just like, I want to put some distance between me and that. Like, can I just think of a different goal instead? Or can I maybe just become okay with where I'm at already? Maybe I don't need those things. Or, I like, or the woman lives in this existence that is very, very fucking exhausting and challenging and courageous, where every day is this feeling of like she wants to give up, she wants to run away and hide. And therefore she's feeling like she's having to force herself. She still follows through. She's still showing up and like doing her best to tick the boxes to move herself forward. But she's doing it from this place, feeling like she has to force herself, bully herself, drag herself along. It is not feeling easy. It is not feeling exciting. She is not feeling lit up inside, which, my love, is definitely possible whilst we're healing the nervous system. It won't be every day, but that is definitely possible. There are wins every single week that you should be experiencing and you can be experiencing as you heal your nervous system, right? As you work through the subconscious patterns that are creating blocks or feelings of self-sabotage or like you want to give up. So if every single day is feeling like a burden and is feeling really hard, and if every single week is feeling like you're not moving forwards, that's why I'm here having this conversation, because one of the things that I move through is going to be missing for you, right? And so coming back to the accountability chat, I then, any combination of things, right? Like I might be celebrating a woman in something that she's shared that she hasn't yet learned in life is worthy of celebration. And I'm like so fucking excited. And she's receiving this voice message about that, which immediately has an impact on her nervous system and her neurology, where she's like, oh, okay. Um, she also gets to experience the feeling of inspiring the other women in that group as well. Other times I'm pinpointing like blind spots or things that I can see are playing out beneath in the subconscious patterning that a client isn't aware of yet. And so I'll be saying to her, hey, I want you to feel into this, because something that I'm seeing play out in that question you asked in the Facebook group earlier this week, and then also what I'm seeing in this accountability share, is that potentially there's a pattern of XYZ. Yeah. So potentially there's a pattern of using this relationship to avoid showing up in starting your business, or using tiredness to avoid having to set boundaries, because if you're too tired, you can't do the thing, you don't have to go, people are easier on you, they expect less of you. So you don't have to set your boundaries on what you're a yes for, what you're a no for, because you're just too tired to do the thing. They're just some very small examples. The things that we pull out are very, very, very profound. And so that's the third way that I have my eyeballs on your world and what is playing out. And I'm playing detective. And I'm like, okay, we need to look at this piece. We need to look at this piece. We need to look at this piece. Here's how I want you to do that. And I want you to come back and tell me how that's gone. And as work through this guided practice, or as you watch this video, or as you use this workbook, I want you to come to the Facebook group and ask me any questions where you get stuck. And if you don't get stuck and you sail through it and it's amazing, I want you to come to the Facebook group and practice celebrating yourself and sharing that as a win. Because sharing, and this is another piece, that is so under acknowledged and underspoken about, is that being able to celebrate yourself, acknowledge yourself publicly, like in front of your loved ones, to name what you're proud of, to name the pieces you love about yourself, to name what you feel like you're fucking nailing in your life right now, what you're excited about. That is enormous for our healing as well, right? It's not just looking into the past and letting go of things, it's acquiring new habits, new ways of being that are essential. Like there's not a question mark over that habit, for example. You know, if you can't receive a compliment, if you can't give yourself a compliment, if you can't bring forth, hey, I want to share with you, this thing is going so well in my life right now. Or I want to share with you, I'm so excited about this result that I've just created for myself. There won't be confidence in your day to day, right? And it requires practice. And then, yeah, the benefit of this intimate individualized coaching, I've touched on this already, so I won't bang on about it too long, is that I'm getting to know your history. Yeah. And I'm just building more and more and more of an understanding of what makes you tick. Yeah. Of what maybe these core wounds or core triggers have been in the past. And so then I can explore, okay, where are they showing up in the subtle ways, but creating big blocks, or, you know, showing up in the subtle ways that when we clean up and look at, when I say subtle ways, what I mean by that is it might seem like, oh, yeah, like, but that's okay. It's not a big version of people pleasing. It's not a big version of perfectionism. It's not a big version of self-abandonment, right? But actually unlocking those levels is what allows you to get to where you want to go. So yeah, that's something that I absolutely adore, is when a woman comes and she's struggling with something and she has a question for me, that I'm drawing on information about a conversation her and I had 6 months ago. And that is helping her to like thread everything together in deepening her understanding of, yeah, what makes her tick and how her internal world works as well, and what her needs are. So there's some of the ways I provide individualized support. And I feel like through that, I've definitely shared my opinion with you on how integral it is, how essential it is, whether that is from me or somebody else who has the skills and has the proven life experience that they can support you in this. I guess one other thing, I want to share. You may have heard that saying before of the thinking that created the problem is not the thinking that's going to solve the problem, right? I like to expand this out a little bit and speak about it as like the neurology and the nervous system that created the problem, or is, I'm going to take that back. I'm not going to say created the problem. Yeah, because it's likely an external event or experience you've downloaded that unknowingly. It's part of your subconscious programming. It's part of your imprints from childhood. So what I'm going to say is this: the neurology and the nervous system that is running that problem, like running the pattern from your subconscious, that creates the problem over and over again, which might be overthinking, might be people pleasing, might be fear of being seen, fear of rejection, fear of living life fully, perfectionism. I might have already said that. Patterns of burnout, because you feel like you always have to be on the go, you always have to be achieving, you always have to be getting more, patterns of overspending, patterns of overworking, screen addictions, all of these. Yeah. So the neurology and the nervous system that is running that programming, that is stored within your subconscious pattern, is not the same neurology and nervous system that is probably going to be able, in and of itself, to change that program and that pattern. So here's what I mean by that. I want you to imagine like a box, and that every behavior or choice we make has a strategy behind it. Some of that strategy we'll be aware of, some of it will be stored in our subconscious where we're not aware of it. It's automated without us even realizing it. And so, sometimes I get curious about this. And an example I could give you is that I can remember I used to live in a home that I had to walk through 2 doors to get into my apartment. And so there were 2 separate keys. And something I realized that I'd started doing is, as I walked down the garden path, literally, to get to this front door is I'd started sorting my keys out and they were like held in my hand with the two keys like pronged out, ready to go, right? To make it as efficient as possible. But I didn't know, I couldn't tell you when I started doing that and like previously do I always do that or do I just sometimes do that? Eventually it became into my conscious awareness and I became aware of it and I could see that I was doing it. But that pattern and that habit was established long before I even realized it was happening. And so I want you to imagine a box and the strategy. So that's an example of a strategy to opening my door and getting into my apartment in the most efficient way possible is like running inside the box. And if we want to get a more effective, more productive, more successful, more rewarding, more joyful way of doing something, right? We need to break the walls of that box so that the strategy can expand and evolve and grow. Yeah. When your own neurology and your own nervous system has created that box, it's very, very, very fucking challenging when you're in the pain of that box, when you're habitual in that box, to also be exercising the size of curiosity required to help you break down those walls and take your neurology and take your nervous system in new directions. It's not impossible, right? But what I will say, and one of the reasons why I still engage coaches, and especially in my business, is I could spend years learning all the things that my coaches teach me, right? And what that would mean is there would also be years before I would have the result that I wanted. And one of the ways that I collapse the time and get the results that I want in my life far more efficiently and quickly is I research and discover who feels like the coach with the plan and the strategy that's right for me, that's going to work for me. And then I engage them to show me, to teach me. And in them teaching me, my neurology and my nervous system gets to expand because they're telling me about things I haven't heard of before. Yeah. But they're also guiding me into action and implementation on that, which means my nervous system is experiencing things I've never experienced before. Part of that process is any limiting beliefs, any fear, any subconscious patterns that are not a match for the goal or the result that I want. They're going to be flushed to the surface immediately, right? Because I'm being placed in the perfect conditions for anything that would hold me back to show up. Right. So like if I need to go and speak on a stage to 1,000 people tomorrow, and I've never done that before, and I've got a really short amount of time to prepare for it, likely I'm going to have some fear, some limiting stories and limiting beliefs come up. And so that is showing me the exact pieces I need to look at, to work on, so that I can transition my neurology and importantly, my nervous system through that to learn that there's an existence beyond it. Yeah, there's an existence for me outside of the box of what I've known so far. And this comes back to what, of course it does, because that's what I'm talking about. I was about to say, it comes back to why individualized support is so important. But before I was talking about like, is your neurology and is your nervous system being exercised frequently enough by an expert that knows how to do that so that you're guided and supported, as opposed to you sitting on a call and watching someone else being coached, or maybe even sitting and watching a pre-recorded program where you're not getting feedback about how it specifically applies to you in an individualized way in the now, based on the goals that you've said that you want to achieve or what you want to change in your life. And so I think that's really important for us to remember. It's something I always remember as well, and continue to make choices in my life around my growth and my healing based on, is like, the neurology and nervous system that I'm living from right now in its current format that has produced the results I've gotten so far is not the same neurology and nervous system that's going to produce the next ones. I have to be able to train it and expand it and build more resilience within it, which means facing into hard things. That's how we expand and build resilience in our nervous system before those results I want will feel like my normal, will feel like my comfort zone, will feel like my everyday, calm, peaceful, confident space to play in. Yeah. And this is why trust and support is so important as well. Another thing that comes from individualized coaching, because if you're way out of your comfort zone, you're feeling so uncomfortable in your body. Yeah. You're questioning everything. It's not a fun place to do that on your own. Yeah. And it's not a fun place to do that where you don't know whether you can trust the person that's guiding you, or you don't know when they're going to show up, or you don't know when you're going to have access to them, or when you're going to be able to get your question answered. And that, to me, creates more stress and more fear in the nervous system that I'm not interested in a woman experiencing when she's already made the very fucking hard, courageous, scary decision to lean into this work, right? I had a client join this most recent intake, actually, that's just finished. And on our clarity call, so that's the other thing, right? Like some of the ways I build trust is that this is an application-based program, my coaching experience, Reveal and Rise. So, I'm already wanting to know about you when you're considering joining. A lot of programs will have a button on their website and you just jump in, and the coach has never met you, never spoken to you, knows nothing about you, doesn't know what stage of your healing you're at, doesn't know for sure if their program is a fit for you. Again, that's not how I do it. You complete an application and then you actually get a free one-to-one call with me. I call it a clarity call, where, I'm so curious about you and interested about you, and I just want to hear about you, and you get to ask me questions and we get to meet each other. And then we decide, like I'm deciding, and I'll share with you on these calls, like, yeah, I believe I can help you, or actually, I don't think that this is the right time for you inside this space. Like, I think you might need to work on this first, or I actually think that you're almost there and you might just need this little piece over here. And then, when a woman joins, they get immediate access to very specific resources that help them set their foundation in motion. Yeah. So I've got a module in the online course called the Wheels Rolling Starter Pack, Starter Module. And so there's nothing confusing about it, right? This woman's met me. We've had conversations. I understand a lot about her. I've shared with her whether or not I believe I can help her. And then she can sink her teeth immediately into those resources and feel like she's gaining momentum, building motivation, feeling connected to her healing and moving forwards. Anyway, I had this woman join. I won't use her name. At the start of the last intake. And one of the things she said to me on this clarity call, where we get to know each other, is she was like, I'm really skeptical that I'll get results, because she had tried a lot of different things. Yeah. And she also said to me, I also don't do well with empathy. Yeah. Or like people being nice to me when I'm struggling and like sympathizing with me. Like, I don't like that. That doesn't feel good for me. So she had some concerns, right? I answered all her questions. She went away and she thought about it for a while, and she ended up joining. And by either the second or third week, let's say the third week, she was on the coaching call and she was saying like, oh, like I was going to wait with this problem and ask this question later because it feels more vulnerable and more exposing, but I don't need to, because this space is so safe and the women here are so trustworthy. So here's my hardest, most vulnerable, scary question that I want to ask. And this is what happens when you feel seen, when you feel like you are known, when you feel understood, when you feel like someone actually gives a fuck about what is going on in your life and is genuinely invested in helping you with that, supporting you with that. Yes, in conversations, but then also like, here are the next steps for you to go away and do with yourself as well, because I'm not interested either in helping women in a way where they're dependent on me forever. And that if they, leave my coaching space, and when they leave my coaching space, because they do, that their world falls apart and they no longer have the support that they need. I'm not interested in that. And that's also why, all of my online resources and my online course, it's lifetime access. So when the women join, I add this course in as a bonus. And so long as this course runs, which I like, this is my life's work. This is my legacy. They have access to all of that content. And every time I add new things in, which I do every few months, or every time I upgrade the program, even in 3 years' time when they haven't been a client for 2 years, they get all of those upgrades and all of those extra resources as well, because I fucking believe in helping women. I think it's actually that simple. There's one more piece I want to speak to that is really important for you when you're considering working with a coach, and that may have been a missing link for you if you feel like you've been doing the mindset work, but you haven't actually gotten the results that you're after yet. And again, this is not a fluke. This was very, very intentional. Oh, it's taking me back. Was 2021, I believe, was the first year when I opened Reveal and Rise. And like, I actually spent 6 months really consciously crafting this and like coming up with ideas and being like, nah, has to be better than that. That's not going to work for this reason. And like knowing what support I needed to provide, but not knowing how I was going to do that. And so one of the things I knew for sure was that there had to be sisterhood, womanhood, community as part of this, because here's the thing. When women start being the real them, when they start saying what they think, they start setting boundaries, they start leaning out of people pleasing and not doing that as much. And they start saying like, they might not even be having a conversation where they're saying to someone, like, I'm not going to be available for this type of behavior anymore. Yeah. It might be that someone's like, hey, like, do you want to go and do this thing with me on the weekend? And instead of just saying yes because they've been asked, and then they're worried that if they don't say yes, they won't be asked again and they'll be excluded, or they might hurt someone's feelings if they say no, they're just like, oh, actually, when I feel into my body, I really feel like going on a hike this weekend and actually like having some alone time, or maybe inviting that same person to go on the hike, but not to go to, the barbecue or like the nightclub or the breath work workshop that they've suggested. So like this woman's really starting to tune into like, okay, what do I feel like? What do I want in this moment? When she's doing that, in her, let's like external world. Yeah. So when I say external world, I mean outside of Reveal and Rise. She has no evidence yet that she can be loved when she suggests an alternative plan, when she speaks up about what's right for her, when she declines an invitation. She has no evidence that she's still lovable in that a lot of the time. And so when we are gathering as women, in like a women's circle environment, and there is so much safety and respect and fucking admiration and celebration of each other. Going to get to that in a minute because it just blows me away every week. It's probably why this is my favorite coaching program. What that's doing is, in a very safe, predictable, certain, secure environment, that I am leading, and there are really clear guidelines, these women are gathering evidence that when they're vulnerable, when they speak their truth, when they show emotion, when they speak up, even though they're like, oh, I feel like I'm being too much. I feel like I'm being too sensitive. I feel like I'm being over the top. I feel like I wish I could just be okay with this thing, but I'm not. And so I'm going to ask about it. And, at times they're like breaking down in tears, or you can see them like physically having a reaction to what they're talking about, whether they're like shaking a little bit, or we can hear it in their voice because it's really fucking scary for them. They are just seeing the women around them pour love and support and compassion and celebration in their direction. And so often what's happening is a woman might be bringing forward a question about, one of their relationships. Maybe it's about their marriage. Yeah. Maybe it is about their sex life. Maybe it's about parenting. Maybe it's about family relationships. So, codependency with primary caregivers, or relationships with in-laws, or, what there's plenty that comes up in the family space. It might be about emotional eating and body image. Maybe it's about abuse. Yeah. There's no topic we don't go to. That woman is having an experience where she is just feeling like stripped bare, so exposed, so uncomfortable, so vulnerable, right? And of course, each woman gets to choose like what level they go to with this. There's no requirements. And what actually happens is most women are surprised by what begins to feel safe and what unfolds. They're not even intentionally like, okay, I have to go to this place. They just find themselves on the call sharing because they've seen other women do it. And so she's having one of the most vulnerable, exposing moments, maybe of her life. Yeah, is often what these women will say. And in that, she's feeling so uncomfortable and nervous, but she's getting the support that she needs. The other women, yeah, are getting the biggest permission slip of what it looks like to be courageous, of what it looks like to reveal the real them. Yeah. Of what it looks like to bring your truth. And the connection and the trust and the compassion in that space that happens because of that just explodes and becomes a ripple effect. And so it's this 3-part experience where one woman's showing up so vulnerably, the other women are feeling incredibly inspired and touched by her, and even seeing parts of herself in her story, themselves in her story. And then this first woman that showed up so vulnerably is receiving all of this like celebration and love and connection and affirmation, and like, this is so relevant for me too. And I didn't know how to ask this. And thank you so much. Thank you. Which is then healing in and of itself, because it's affirming to her, oh my gosh, I can be me. And other people are saying thank you to me for being me. Like, what? Because most women who join this space have never had that experience before, right? Where they get to reveal the most vulnerable, scary, maybe even shameful parts of themselves that they feel like are not okay to speak about or acknowledge, and they've been trying to push them down, hide them away. And yet when they bring them forth, it's such a liberating experience that they get to begin to rise into more of their true, authentic, real self, and feel that momentum and that motivation and that ease start to build towards the goals that they want most. And so I think that's close to wrapping up the conversation that I wanted to bring here around this, because it's fucking important, my love. Like, I've so been there where I felt like I've tried everything. I've poured my heart and soul in. I've gotten excited about different solutions or different plans. And I'm like, this is the thing, it's going to work. I'm like, building myself up to go all in again. And then I do it. And it's like, fuck, like I really thought that was going to work and it hasn't worked. And I don't know if I can like show up again. I don't know if I can risk going through like the disappointment and the frustration, but also like the embarrassment and the shame and the despair and the exhaustion of trying something new and it having it not work out again. I've been there, fuck, so many times in my life until I discovered what actually works and what is actually required to be your most real and confident self, because there is no question mark whatsoever in my mind, in my body, in my soul as to whether or not that is possible for you. It is absolutely possible for you. Is it going to be hard? Yeah. Is it easier when you have the support that you need, you have the practical tools, and you're surrounded by beautifully supportive, trustworthy, courageous women who are also doing it, and you get to connect with them every day if you want to and share with them and even build friendships from that space. There's been quite a few instances where women, this is an online coaching experience, but the women have met up in person. That makes it easier. That makes it a fuck ton easier. It's another reason why I still show up in coaching spaces and I'm in a business coaching group, because I'm watching other women feel frustrated and challenged by the same things I feel frustrated and challenged by. And so it's a beautiful reminder that these frustrations and challenges have nothing to do about me and my capability or my intelligence. Yeah. It comes down to taking the time to learn which pieces of my nervous system, which pieces of my neurology need to be retrained, rewired, healed, looked at, and then guided in a new direction so that new habits form that are a match for the new goal or new level of life that I want to be living at. And it's exactly the same for you, beautiful woman. It is all possible. And if if you feel like what I've shared is a match for you and you are equal parts excited and like there's this spark of hope within you, and it feels believable that this could work for you, but then there's also an equal part of you that is like fucking scared and afraid and faces into maybe even a lot of guilt around investing in herself, like spending money on herself, so that you can feel happy and so that you can feel confident and so that you get the support that you need. Fucking been there. I want you to know how normal that is. And in fact, that's what I'm looking for when I'm speaking to women on these clarity calls is, if you're stepping out of your comfort zone truly in any area of life, if you're stepping out far enough in a way that is actually going to significantly change your life and get you a result that you haven't had or you haven't had consistently, both are going to be present. There needs to be the spark of hope and the feeling of trust and the believability that what you're stepping into is a good fit for you and that you're going to be supported and you're going to have what you need. And there will definitely be the piece of you that's like, I don't know 100% how this is going to go. I feel anxious and nervous about showing up in this space. This is going to stretch me. This is going to ask things of me that I've never done before. I know I'm going to feel uncomfortable. This is going to be hard for me. We want both. And that is a beautiful sign if both are there. And if that's true for you, I would absolutely love to invite you to apply for Reveal and Rise. And jump on a clarity call so that we can have a chat. There is no obligation to join because you jump on a clarity call. All I ask is that you're genuinely interested in getting support, whether that's from me or not is not a problem, but you're genuinely ready and interested to be supported and do this work. And yeah, let's chat. Let's learn more about you. Let's talk about what it is that you need. Let's figure out what is a right fit for you so that you can start moving forwards and feel like you're going the right way about it. That when you're moving forwards and when you're investing in yourself, time, energy, love, attention, money, that you can feel confident that you're doing it right and it's actually going to make a change. All right, my love. Goodbye for now.
Thank you for being here for this conversation, my love. If you would like more free resources, if you'd like to learn about my programs or coaching opportunities, you can find all of that information at my website, gemmahanley.com. I'll link it below in the show notes. And if you would like to connect daily, head over and find me on Instagram. My handle there is Gemma E. Hanley, and I reply to all of my DMs there personally. If you enjoyed this episode and found it valuable, please share it with someone. You never know who needs to hear one little thing to take their day from feeling stuck and heavy to light and free. See you on the next one.